Hello friends, I hope you're all doing great. This was supposed to be a plan with me video, but I think it's safe to assume that you're all set up for October. I wasn't able to do it sooner, but regardless, I hope you'll still enjoy watching me plan. And of course, you can take inspiration from this video for any other month. So before we get started, I'll show you what September looked like. So I did really like this setup, but it was a bit too high maintenance for the type of month that I've had. So I'm excited to change it up this month. I mean, you can see that I haven't really used some of my trackers almost at all, and I also couldn't be bothered to journal as much as I would have hoped for, but that's really not a big deal to me. Alright, now if you follow me on Instagram, you probably already know that I've decided to move into a regular notebook, which kind of feels like biting the bullet after using the discbound system for more than a year now. And while I do absolutely love it, I just felt the need for a change, and I actually wasn't even thinking about this, but Dingbat sent me this notebook and I just fell in love with it, so I thought it was probably a sign that I should switch things up. I didn't get a chance to set it up completely yet, so I did leave some blank pages at the front, and now I'm just gonna get started with the setup for this month. So I didn't base my theme on autumn because I used to do this every year and I just got bored of it, so instead I went with echinacea flowers, or at least I hope that's how you pronounce it. So the flowers are really simple to draw. You're just going to start off with a bunch of upside down U shapes that are going to be the center of the flower, and you want to make it so that it kind of forms a triangular shape, and then you just add some long and thin petals that are going downwards, and the whole flower is going to kind of look like a cone, which is why they are actually also called cone flowers. After I colored everything in, the page reminded me more of spring or summer, but it doesn't really feel like autumn to me yet, and plus I just really wanted an excuse to use purple for some reason. So, oh, funny story by the way, before setting this up I had a huge cup of coffee, which I don't usually drink, and I was so shaky and my hands were just not steady at all, so there was no way I could have done any calligraphy that I usually do. So I went with this type of sketchy 3D letters that do not require any type of steadiness skills. And I just realized that's kind of ironic I'm mentioning it while drawing some pretty steady lines right here, which I've actually gotten so many questions about how I draw straight lines, but the notebook actually has a dot grid, so it's literally like connecting the dots. And another tip on that is to actually use your whole arm, not just your wrist. So I'm keeping my wrist locked and I'm only moving from the elbow down, if that makes sense. And yeah, that's how you draw straight lines. Easiest tutorial in the world right there. So anyways, I'm moving to London next week, so the rest of the month is just gonna be, you know, getting everything ready, finding rent and all that fun stuff that comes with moving. Said no person ever. So I didn't really have a need for the big calendar anymore. I just needed something a bit more flexible. So I'm gonna use a small calendar just as an overview with the most important stuff. And then on the right page I have two columns for personal and business tasks, and I'm thinking that's gonna work best because that's kind of how my brain works right now anyways. Trackers. Okay, so because I'm gonna have a weird month, I had to cut down on tracking stuff because personal development isn't really going to be a priority this month. So I basically squished it all together into one page, so my habit and sleep trackers. I initially wasn't going to do this either because it still might be kind of hard to keep up with, but it didn't really feel right to leave it out, you know. So I kept the expense page quite simple because I only want to track, let's say, miscellaneous purchases. So not like food and the usual stuff, but more like, I don't know, online shopping or just bigger purchases or expenses in general. But most important for me on this page is to have a section to review my budget. So that's what I did at the bottom here. And then to fill up the space, I just drew some more flowers. And I just realized that I have a tendency to overly decorate the pages right as I set them up, and then once I fill them in they end up maybe a bit too cluttered, but that's fine. Alright, the next page is a packing list for obvious reasons, and then the next one is for brain dump. And by the way, if you have any ideas on what else to call it other than brain dump, please let me know because I don't really like the way that sounds for some reason. So I was kind of nervous going into this notebook because you guys know with a discbound notebook, when I make a mistake, I just take the page out, no big deal. Now the pages in this notebook are all punctured, so you could basically take any of them out, but you know, I'd probably empty out the notebook pretty quickly that way. And I just kept reminding myself how I've been telling you guys for so long not to put too much pressure on yourselves and not to focus on perfecting every single stroke that you make. But that was easy coming from someone who was relying on just taking out the page, right? And so I wanted to follow my own advice, and to be honest, ironically, it felt really liberating. This was actually the first video that I've ever made where I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do beforehand, because that's what I used to do before filming these videos, and I just didn't really care that much about what it actually looked like. I just wanted it to be useful for me while at the same time, you know, giving me the opportunity to get creative if I wanted to. So I just wanted to go back to that in a way. The thing is though, and I'm curious if anyone else feels like this, I mean, it's not a big deal, but I feel like I get inspired by everything, which doesn't really seem like it would be a problem. I mean, it's not, but that also means that I want to try everything, and so of course it applies to my bullet journal as well. And what I mean by that is when I look through Instagram, for example, and I see like a really minimal and clean spread, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful spread I've ever seen, I've got to try that. And then literally 5 seconds later I see a super decked out one and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful spread I've ever seen, I've got to try that. And so it's a lot of back and forth trying to find my own style, which usually applies to art, but I guess for me it applies here as well, because a lot of times I feel all over the place and I'm not always comfortable in my own journal. Does that make sense? And as much as I don't really want to admit this to myself because I don't want to put pressure on myself, but for me the bullet journal is, let's say, 67% about planning and 33% about memories. I just made those numbers up, by the way. But so that also means that I do care about what it looks like, because I know that I value memories a lot, whereas, you know, you wouldn't really have that same kind of relationship with a regular planner, I guess. Anyways, I'm not sure what my point is. I guess I'm just trying to convince myself that it's okay to care what it looks like, and it's okay to spend more time on it, more so than with just a simple planner, just as long as it doesn't become some kind of burden in a way. Alright, anyways, I should probably stop rambling as we are coming to the final flip through. You know when you have something in mind but it doesn't exactly turn out the way you pictured it? Yeah, that kind of happened to me with this whole setup, but I still enjoy doing it. This probably took me about, I'd say, 2 or 3 hours. It was those damn 3D letters, I'm telling you. Oh, this is the journaling spread, by the way. I obviously squished it down to make it less high maintenance, and then I jumped straight into the second week, which I'm probably gonna mirror on the other side for next week as well. Anyways, guys, as always, don't forget that you can find links to all of the supplies in the description, and other than that, I really hope you enjoyed this video and that I'll get to see you in my next one. Take care, guys. Bye.